So, right, okay, the microphone isn't working, so let's crack on. Let's copy that link there. Let's get this into Twitter now. Control B. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I'll be with you in a moment. I'm just posting this on. I'm just posting this on Twitter. So we have everybody. We all okay? Close. Right, let's do this thing. Let's pick through the bones of last night, which was obviously not good. And you can chat now. You can say stuff in the chat. I can say stuff in the chat. There we go. We all say stuff in the chat. Yeah, let's pick through the bones of last night, which was obviously not good. It was after about an hour, it just became quite uncomfortable to watch because there was half an hour left, 25 minutes left, and everything just kind of felt, even at that stage, it felt a little bit desperate. Derby were they were huffing and puffing a lot. They were getting into those positions, in and around the 18-yard area. They were getting into those fine, but they just didn't really lay a glove. They just didn't really lay a glove on Walton in the second half. Tom Lawrence had a couple of chances in the first half, but again, nothing really clear cut. And the team that looked like getting the second goal and eventually did get the second goal was Barnsley, and that just wasn't good. The change to the back four, which Liam Rossini said at halftime was his idea. He said he'd spoken with Phillip Cocu and he agreed, and they changed to a back four and sort of. I just don't understand. Again, just couldn't understand the thinking. And again, once they reverted to a back four, they just kind of looked very sluggish, very ponderous. Kamil Jezwiak came on, and he was probably their best player in the second half offensively. He did some nice things, and the sort of things that I think Tom Lawrence has come off the boil from doing. And look, everyone's angry and everyone wants to pass some things around and everyone wants to see who's to blame, and they're all to blame. Tom Lawrence having an off night isn't the reason that Derby are bottom of the championship. That's just how it is. What would you have done last night to change the game? The Warsmith. Thank you, the Warsmith, and I see you also on Twitter a lot as well. What would I have done to change it? It's difficult because I think the one thing that they need is the one thing that is so very difficult to distill, and that's confidence. That is so very difficult to distill and put into the. If you watch the game last night, I'm sure a lot of you did. Once that first goal went in, you could just sort of. I don't know if you could feel it from the TV, but you could just sort of feel this collective and that's difficult to bring them back up. That's very difficult. As a motivator, Liam Rossini did all that he could. He was shouting orders, he was trying to give coaching tips, and he was clapping and saying, come on, let's go. And he was really trying to get something out of that squad, but they were just. They were just deflated. They just didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to go. So that, for me, that's very difficult. Afternoon, Ryan. The reality is Dutch football styles have never really successfully been. Do you know what, Christopher? It's actually difficult to disagree with that. I think when you look across the history of it, Van Gaal really struggled to implement his ideas. De Boer, we all know how things went there with Crystal Palace. I also believe he was sacked from Atlanta as well, so his methods haven't really translated. Ronald Koeman had some success with Southampton and Everton. Barcelona coach now. Ronald Koeman had some success. I think his methods were a little more not typically Dutch. He tended, I think, in parts to use 4-4-2 a little bit, and would experiment as well. And I think I would class his ideas as not typically Dutch in many ways. And Koeman had some success in there. Can we now ask the team if a lack of fans are in? Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's always going to be an effect, but this is an effect for everyone. Nobody has fans. I think, and I think what you should really ask is if fans were there, would that have helped? Because you'd have booed. You'd have rightly booed, by the way, but you'd have booed, and that would have helped no one. Liam Rosina in his post-game interview said that in one way he it's fortunate that fans aren't here, and another way it's unfortunate because he knows that they'd have booed, and he said they would have deserved to be booed. I don't think that would have helped. It's difficult it's so difficult to know. But I think this is where if fans aren't here to motivate, you need your management to motivate. You need to motivate yourself. And I think I just don't see a lot of motivation from Twan aside. I don't see a lot of motivation from like Chris van der Weerden and his assistant manager. And I wonder if Philip's very calm approach, which I'm all for, by the way, but I wonder if that translates as how do you get when you're near the bottom of the table and fighting. I wonder how it gets. How are you going to rile your team up to go out and fight for 3 points? Fight for their lives. And I just wonder if he has that next gear. And because at some point, if you're very calm and deliberate, at some point it kind of, players kind of half check out. And look, that's not players, that's people. You need ways to switch up your message. You need, at work, you need ways to get the best out of people and to switch up your message. And I just wonder about that. The whole reason for this lack of investment available from Mel nowadays, this is the reason the club have been so desperate for investment, not managed it quick enough. This is the result. Yeah, Dan Holdsworth, thank you for your question. Or that wasn't a question, it was a statement. I think sort of what Derby did this summer was kind of like 3 windows worth of transfers in one window. They'd always been looking for investment. Cocu had wanted players in January. He'd wanted a new striker in January. He wanted new creative midfielders, new wingers in January. And obviously, with the sort of the way he came into the club, I don't think a lot of those signings were his signings. So he needed those. But look, I don't really think you at the end of the day you have to do the best with what you've got, and they've got good players. They've got good players. You can't say that they don't. This team on paper should not be bottom of the championship. They just shouldn't be. But the game isn't played on paper, and that means that there's a severe disconnect going on at a deeper level. And that's the worrying thing: is how deeply rooted is that disconnect? How deeply rooted is that problem? Online isn't a great barometer of many things, but it's pretty clear that patience has run out. Which they're bottom of the championship. It's hard. Do you expect a new manager to be in during the international break? Castor Troy, I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, but just mainly because obviously the changing of hands with ownership is a thing that is very, very difficult and delicate, and it almost places everybody in the club into limbo. Do you, as part of the ownership, the current ownership, do you make these changes now, or do you wait until the changing of hands happens and just let those guys make the changes that they want to make? Also, I believe that any payoffs count towards FFP because they're losses. They will count as losses on the books. So the payout for Cocu and presumably Twan Cheapers and Chris van der Weerden, I'm not too sure about Liam Rosina because he was a Cocu hire, but I know he's highly thought of. So the payouts for those guys will be pretty steep, and obviously they're not even halfway through a 4-year contract yet. So yeah, that is also a tricky thing. Derby Digest much better on it. Good, thank you. What do you think is next for us, Ryan? Joe Smith. They're bottom of the championship, and they're pretty much bottom in every single metric. If things got worse, Don't know. Lots of rum. I think, and I try and do this in a lot of ways when things get truly putrid, is when things really do get like this. The only kind of way is up. The only possible way now is up. It's forwards in some way, shape, or form. The very next thing they have to do is get out of the relegation zone because they are 2 points adrift in the relegation battle. They spoke about wanting to be playoffs. I mean, man, they're like 13 points away from the playoffs. Forget it. Playoffs. Playoffs. I just hope we can win a game. Any of you NFL Indianapolis Colts fans, you know that reference. So yeah, they have to get out of the relegation zone. Would it? I mean, if the vibes are so bad, so bad at the club, would it be the worst thing in the world to work out something with Cocu and his staff and put someone like put Rosenior in charge, or maybe even Rosenior has to go as well, just because he's part of the staff? That would hurt, but he is part of the staff. So maybe he has to go. Sorry, my cat has jumped on my lap. Maybe you put someone like Darren Wassall in charge, Justin Walker. There'll be someone there that if you think the vibes are so bad and you need a result right now, which they need to start getting those, if not right now, very soon, to just climb out the table, just try and broker any kind of deal. Let's see. Why do you think Jozwiak was left out of the starting 11 yesterday? Stuart Hughes. I don't know, Stuart, mate. When I looked at that team sheet, I found it quite strange that he was left out of the starting 11. Right now, yes, sorry, John. Yeah, you have. It didn't go. I'm just thinking of qualified candidates. So sorry. Back to Stu. Yeah, when I saw him not on the team sheet, I thought that was a strange omission because. He has been off the ball. He's got a lot of things to learn defensively. I think he sort of sometimes doesn't track his runner properly, and he tucks in a bit too late here and there. And look, these are details that he'll iron out. He'll get there. But on the ball, that's where he's really the bright spark of the team. And you saw it when he came on. Within 2-3 minutes, he had a couple of really good runs, and he was dragging defenders all over the place, and defenders were dragging him down. As well, just trying to get a hold of him. I don't know why he was left out of the team. Maybe to rest his, to give him a bit of rest. He's played a lot of minutes and going on international duty. I think Poland have got 3 games coming up in the next 2 weeks. So he's got a lot of minutes as well, and they need him for Derby need him for going forward. But they just right now they're in the territory that they can't think of 6 months down the line of 2 months down the line. They have to think about this game and getting 3 points out of this game. And I thought starting Bielik was interesting. I thought it was a bold call, and I kind of thought it was the right call as well. Need a ball-playing centre-back, someone that can pass between the lines from deep. And then the shape was completely ruined when Wayne Rooney went deep and then started moving into a back, like he was dropping into the centre-half position. And I know Liam Rosenior said that was his call. And for me, in my opinion, it was the wrong call. Because I mean, when Rooney dropped deep and Jason Knight was pushing forward, the gap between the defence and midfield, well, there was no midfield. So it was defence, massive bit of greenery, and then, all the attacking players. It was just really difficult to watch. Do you see any improvement in the football at all since Cocu came last year? Bradley Broadhurst. When they're in the 3-4-3, yeah, they're a lot snappier. The problem is, as we've seen, they either don't have faith to go with that for a full 90 minutes, and when Derby don't get the second goal, they tend to retreat and go back into their shell a lot. And that's when they invite teams onto them, and that's when they get the second goal. But in terms of how the football has developed in the 3-4-3, it's a lot snappier. They pass between the lines better. The movement between the front three is much better, and they defend much better as well. And I think Davis is a big part of that, defending a 3. Davis is the team's best natural defender, but because he's not the quickest, he needs cover, and you can do that with 2 centre halves, either side of him. So yeah, I think generally it's been better. We went through a period pretty much this time last year where Derby went through a period of 7 without a win. And at that point, they were playing some really putrid football at that time. They didn't really lay a glove on the opposition much at all. So yeah, it was difficult. Missed the game yesterday, but how did Bielik, besides from the obvious result? Connor. And Leah's reply, yeah, he was kind of sloppy and ponderous in the first half at times. But I thought he grew into it. There was one instance in the second half where and I think Derby looked pretty beat at this point. It might have been 2-0 already at the time. But he actually sent a really good sort of diagonal ball, like 50 yards, and just picks out. I think it was Lee Buchanan on the far side. It was one of those we kind of chuckle and think, man, like this team has some really good individual quality. They just can't put it all together right now, and it's a shame. Can you see the takeover being done next week? Man, if I say yeah and it doesn't happen, you'll all come for me. So all I'll say is I can see it happening. It's not like buying a car, I guess. You're trying to. There's a lot of things to hand over, and I think there's still a lot of things to iron out in terms of like the stadium and the amortization policy and things like that. So it's to put a time frame on it from my side would be irresponsible. How long until Ibe is ready? Lewis Hawkins. International break, I think. After the international break, I think he's going to be ready to start some games. Those were the vibes I was getting from pre-match QPR when Cocu was speaking that he's probably going to be close to fitness, and Rosenior said that pre-game for last night, pre-game for the Barnsley, that he's getting close. So yeah, after the international break, I would expect that. Personally, think Bielik would be better in a CDM alongside Shinnie. Jack Jones music. I wouldn't be against the idea. What I will say is, I think Bielik in midfield, particularly as a 2 in midfield, I think can get exposed a little bit, just because I don't think he's the quickest, and he can get turned quite quickly. But I wouldn't be against the idea. He's played for the 23s, I think, since coming back. He's certainly had moments where he stepped into midfield, and he's looked pretty good. He's looked comfortable, and his passing range is good. What would be? It wouldn't be Sam Allardyce. How Cook? At the minute, they need someone who's going to motivate. It's clear that it's just, and they need a fighter. And I know that kind of sucks when you're looking at playoffs and now you're looking at, right, we need someone to just motivate and fight and get us up the table. The job that Paul Cook did with Wigan last year was phenomenal. What he did with that football club was really, really good. If you want to tout him as a possible candidate, and look, Phillip Cocu is still in a job, so it's one of those where it feels a bit weird. But yeah, if you want to tout him as a possible candidate, if and when Philip is relieved of his duties, I wouldn't hate the Paul Cook idea at all. I think he'd make this team disciplined. They'd have a very set way of playing. You look at the Wigan team, and it wasn't flashy, but they had a very set way of playing. They were rigid. They had a bank of 2, bank of 4, bank of 5. And they were rigid, they were difficult to break down, and they attacked like that once they got the ball. It was lightning quick up the field. Obviously, Marshall has worked under him, Byrne has worked under him. So yeah, I wouldn't be against that. Just last couple here because we're approaching 20 minutes. So man, these things are turning out long, aren't they? Thank you guys. Last couple. Is there a reason Rooney is never dropped? Lee Middleton. Difficult. It's difficult. I don't really know the ins and outs of how that relationship works. Personally, from my side, I don't think that he has played well enough consistently across 90 minutes or however minutes he gets before he's substituted to warrant a place in the starting 11. And I think if the feeling inside the building is of a similar opinion, I imagine it's pretty demoralizing if you're you're Dwayne Holmes sat on the bench and you kind of think, man, I've been busting my gut to try and get in this team and I can't. Or if you're, Louis Sibley sat on the bench, or you're Colin Kazim Richards when Wayne's up front sat on the bench, you think, man, I can't get in the team. But this guy's walking in, and I don't know the dynamics of it. But yeah, to me, it kind of feels like you got to drop him for a game, and they played pretty. In the 3 games he was gone, they played pretty well, and even the Blackburn game before lockdown when he was gone, they won 3-0, and yeah. Last one. Can you see Cocu going once the takeover is confirmed? Yeah, I think if he's gonna stick around until the changing of hands, I think one of the first things that will happen is they'll relieve him of his duties. Because let's not make any let's not make no mistake. These guys aren't coming in to take over to survive relegation or just try and consolidate in the Championship. Like, not even to just compete in the playoffs. They want to go up. They want to win the division. They want to go up, via the playoffs or whatever it is. So they won't settle for where they are in the league. And I think one of the first things is to have what's the point in having fresh ownership if the management stays the same? So yeah, I mean, they've got no investment in Cocu. He was Mel's guy. He's not going to be this new regime's guy. So yeah, I think maybe one of the first things here is he's relieved of his duty. I mean, before we go, I'm just going to run some truly grim metrics for you. So their expected goals, Derby are dead last in that category. 7.61 expected goals across 11 games. That's awful. You look at their conversion rate. It's 6.25. That's worst in the division. I think only Wickham have a worse conversion rate. The goals, 5. That's bad. Goals from open play, 1. That's bad. Big chances created, 5. Again, that's worst in the division. All these metrics are why Derby County are bottom, and kind of everyone's kind of to blame for that. I'm really sorry it has to end on a bummer, but it doesn't, because we're nice and positive here on the Derby Digest. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Lockdown 2 Electric Boogaloo is well underway. So make sure you and yours and your family, make sure they're all good. Try and take your mind off some things that yesterday that sucked. And just try and relax. Have a nice Sunday. If you are heading to work on Monday because you can't work from home, please be safe out there. And if you're working from home, just take a minute to realize that it's kind of lucky that any job that you can do, you can still do it from the comfort of your office. Like me, I'm fortunate in that regard. So yeah, love you guys. Gareth Bale, don't sue me. I don't know. Love you guys. Take care. Speak soon. Bye.